Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Aparuta de sangamata satawara ye sodavanta bamunchantu satang. So this evening is the beginning of the community retreats. And so this is make the determination for this practice, bhatipata, to restrain yourself from, say, seeking distractions, but in the worldly distractions, and to really put forth the effort to look inward, to be aware. So this chant, aparuta de sangamata taura, the gate to the deathless is open. This is significant to remind yourself, because in the worldly life, of course, one is increasingly caught into the habits, worldly conditions, what we see, hear, smell, taste, touch, think, feel, emotional habits, memories, and all the worldly pressures that we have to live with in this form, human form. And so this opportunity, say this life here at Amaravati, monasticism, everything is that this whole monastery, the images, the conditions are for awakeness, being awake, alert, reflective, to put ourselves into that deathless reality rather than into trying to endlessly try to straighten out, clean up, and perfect the worldly conditions. Because when we try to do that, then there's no hope. It just leads to increased despair, because the world is about change, about conditions that arise and cease, birth and death. It's not about liberation or any kind of permanent happiness. The human body itself, remember, is a convention in nature. It's a condition that we learn to reflect on rather than identify with. So the Buddha's teaching is a very skillful way of examining, investigating this strange condition, this strange way that we have to live in a human form, in a sense world, in a universe that we can only wonder about. And we can wonder about it. It's awesome, it's marvelous, it's also very threatening, frightening, because it's all about the unknown and what you can't see and what you can't be sure of when you try to use your senses and the conditioning of your mind to understand reality. So in this word reality we use this word Dhamma, what is real, and then what is illusory. Is the creations we make around the conditions, the way we identify, judge ourselves, are attached to the conditioning that we have, to identity with the body, identity attachment to your thoughts, memories, emotions, conventions, cultural attitudes, assumptions, everything that's conditioned. The average unenlightened, unawakened human being never questions it, just really operates from the basic assumption, I'm this person, and without any reference to that assumption. So I've always, these past few years, I've kind of really trying to put you into that state of questioning, of reflection, such as I am an unenlightened person who needs to practice in order to become enlightened in the future. And of course, most people, that's how we all began. We come into meditation or monastic life, this idea of I am somebody who wants to get something I don't have yet. I'm not good enough the way I am. I've got so many faults, defilements, and I've got to meditate in order to free myself from them and become enlightened in the future. And even today, many people, even Buddhist people born in Buddhist countries, feel that they can't ever get enlightened. You hear them saying, the days of being enlightened as an arahant are past. So we have various opinions. We can form all kinds of delusions even by grasping the scriptural teachings or the assumptions of a culture. But when you really begin to use the Buddhist teaching for reflection, it's not for grasping or for believing, but for reflection, then you begin to see what, the suffering you create by these illusions, by these assumptions. So the first one, the one that is the most persistent and seems most real to us, is I am a person. I am somebody that needs to do something. I'm practicing on this retreat, the end of the Vassa, in order to get something I don't have yet, such as I want to get insight, or I want to get rid of my defilements, I want to get rid of anger, I want to become pure, I want to improve myself. However you see yourself at this moment, it's not that it's wrong or that you should not have these thoughts, but what I'm recommending is to be aware of it as what it is. The thought, I am an unenlightened person, is a thought, isn't it? It's a series of thoughts. And that's what it is. It's in the English context, English grammar, I am somebody is a way we think and identify with the body, with the conditioning of the mind. So then the awakened consciousness is being awake to that, recognizing that I am is a convention, and be able to question this sense of I am this body, this person. And then the way that follows along in a whole pattern of I am, the age of the body. I'm young, I'm old, I'm male, I'm female, I'm tall or short, fat or thin, black or white, European or Asian. I am, it goes on endlessly into all the various conditions, variations on conditioned phenomena that we identify with. But the gate to the deathless then is this awareness of that. And so I keep pointing this out, trying to keep insisting and encouraging you to look at this sense of I am. Not to judge it and say that you shouldn't think such a thought, but to recognize it for what it is. And then you can actually, you have the insight into that this awareness is the Dhamma, is reality. And these conditions that you're aware of are, rise and cease according to other conditions. So even the thought, I am an unenlightened person, is a condition that arises and ceases. None of us go around thinking that as a continuous obsessive thought pattern that dominates every moment of our life. But we can believe it. In other words, when we don't question and don't reflect, then we tend to believe these assumptions. The society affirms them. People we live with, the Sangha, the cultural attitudes all from you are somebody with defilements that's got to purify yourself. And it's not that that's wrong, it's not about wrong or right anymore, but about what is conditioned and unconditioned. So this awareness, mindfulness, is the door. It's the only way we can get perspective on the condition. And as long as you don't appreciate that or don't really recognize the importance of this, then of course you're going to spend maybe your whole life just trying to perfect yourself as a person, or as a monk, or as a nun, or trying to perfect the world, trying to get, change the world, the society, and make it better and better. Which is praiseworthy in worldly terms, but it was never the way to liberation, and can lead to despair and disillusionment very easily. So this sense of I am is what we call Sakkaya Ditthi. During this week-long retreat, really contemplate the first three fetters: Sakkaya Ditthi, Silabbata Paramasa, Vicikicca. Because these are very skillful words, but apply them. It's not about memorizing Pali words and being able to repeat them, but they're actually pointing at this sense of I am. The ego, what you call the ego, or the personality view, the sense of yourself as a personality, as a physical being, as a human being, whatever. Also, the thinking process is conditioned. And so we have words, grammar, we tend to project onto everything, we give it names. And the name for the object tends to be more real to us than the object themselves. So we can think about, in abstract ways, we can remember all kinds of things, naming this, naming that, through memories of the past. The ability to remember, we have this retentive memory, so we have to remember what we do, whether it's good or bad, right or wrong, we tend to remember it. In our own monastic form, we've got the Vinaya and the Sila as a kind of conventional form about action and speech, how we, our agreement on how we're going to live together in this monastery. So it's based on moral precepts on is a system of etiquette, of learning, of agreeing to live within this structure, moral structure, social structure, not for identity or, but for an agreement, a way that we can actually begin to reflect, because we develop a sense of trust and respect through our social agreements based on morality. If we didn't have that, then it would be each one for themselves, wouldn't it? It's a survival of the fittest, me against you. But because we can agree, then we can also begin to, just like encouraging you to keep the noble silence during this retreat, because we can agree to that. That's part of the retreat style, and then we can reflect on our own impulses to talk or to chit-chat or to seek conversations, or our own tendencies towards just speaking whenever the impulse arises. So the determination for noble silence isn't a kind of something one grasps and uses as out of the self-view, but it's an agreement we use to respect each other's practice and to restrain ourselves from impulsive habits of speaking or chatting, social engagements. Now we live in a very violent universe, so when you contemplate nature around us, we have law of the jungle, survival of the fittest. I was watching these Planet Earth films by David Attenborough or Richard, I forget which, and Attenborough anyway. And you look at these fantastic DVDs about nature and how everything's eating eating some other creature. These schools of fish in the Atlantic Ocean, the whales come on and just scoop them up, swallow a whole school of fish, and birds getting fish flying down and taking what's left over, and this consuming. This endless consumption and killing and violence, that's a part of this planetary life. Survival of the fittest. And then we have, we have problems with rats, so we have these feral cats that are supposed to eat the rats, because we're not supposed to kill anything. But we also have to obey the laws, which, about not having vermin in the kitchen. So then these moral dilemmas arise. But this is nature. Nature is like this. It's all about violence and eating, and it's also about, breeding, nurturing, procreating. So reflecting in this way, it's not to judge it and just to be, think that it should be otherwise, but to recognize the very forces of this planet that we're living on, and the human bodies we have, the energies and tendencies, just on the level of sexual desires, sexual energies, or violent energies. We have the same energies, that can lead towards violence and murder and killing and slaughter as all other animals. But human beings have a certain conceit that we're somehow better than the rest, and that's another delusion. that somehow we're better than the other animals. But the thing that the Buddha pointed to was not to consider ourselves better, but to awaken. And this is the great gift of human birth, is this reflectiveness, ability to contemplate our own existence, to observe our emotions, our tendencies, the violent ones, the lustful ones, the confused, the vanity, the fears that haunt our world. These are natural, these are part of this realm. It's a fear realm that we're experiencing. Survival, procreation. And yet in this realm is this opportunity that I'm pointing to during this retreat, is to awaken to it. Not a judgment. It's not to criticize it, but to recognize. And in this way, the Buddha keeps saying, all conditions are impermanent. Sape sankarani cha. This continuous refrain. Don't just think it or chant it as a kind of mechanical mantra, but apply it and recognize. You're looking at change rather than trying to make problems around the quality, quantity of the conditions that you're experiencing through your senses, through your mind. So this anicca, sape sankhara anicca. Sape means all conditions. Sankhara means conditions. All phenomena, conditions are impermanent, anicca. So this is to be reflected on, to observe. So it's not like you're projecting the concept of anicca onto experience. It's just a reminder. That phrase, sape sankhara anicca, is a reminder. And sometimes we get it wrong. We're always projecting. We're saying everything is impermanent as a kind of, way of dismissing life. It's not just being able to say everything is impermanent and not observe impermanence. Be the knower of impermanence. So that's where this gate to the deathless is knowing impermanence, knowing anicca, being able to recognize it. All conditions. So it's about the coarse, the subtle, the refined, whatever the conditions can be. Because conditioned phenomena has endless varieties, qualities, quantities, from minute to grand, from the microscopic to the macroscopic. It's all, whether it's good or bad, heaven or hell, right or wrong, the best or the worst, or any kind of condition whatsoever, from the extremes to the more kind of middle modeling gray areas of conditioned phenomena. It's all impermanent. And so this impermanence is what we recognize through awareness. So just like observing your breath, your own body breathing, that's the pattern, isn't it? You breathe in and you breathe out. The body is not you breathing. You don't tell yourself to breathe. The body breathes. It knows what to do. And so but you can bring attention to breathing, to inhaling, exhaling. And that's like mindfulness of the breath, isn't it? So you're using your body breathing as a observing it, not as, do I breathe as good as somebody else? Or am I breathing rightly according to Buddhist monastics? Or we can make a problem about breathing. But it's, whatever way you're breathing, just be aware of it. It's like this, if it's shallow or deep, long or short, pleasant or unpleasant, it's this way. So this is like recognizing awareness is not breathing. Breathing is, you're observing the breathing. There's the observation, the recognition. Awareness allows you to follow the breath from its arising to its cessation. That's mindfulness. It's not dependent on inhaling and then you're not mindful anymore. As you cultivate the path of awareness, then mindfulness of breathing in, breathing out is like this. The same applies to the postures of the body, sitting, standing, walking, lying down. These bodies need to change positions. You can't just sit or stand or walk or lie down for all that long without feeling discomfort or pain or restlessness. Needs of the body, functions of the body demand that we move them. So awareness of the body and its posture, that which is aware of the body, that which is aware of the breath. Is that me, Ajahn Sumedho, watching my breath, or me watching my body? Or is that sense of me doing something, another condition that comes and goes, arises and ceases? But when the sense of me and mine is gone, then there is the awareness still operating. And so this is what we recognize, is begin to appreciate, begin to value this gate, this door. We call it the deathless. The deathless then can observe, can know death. So just contemplate that. The unconditioned is aware, that allows us to get perspective on the condition. So mindfulness then is the gate to that deathless, to that unconditioned reality. Paramatta Dhamma, Paramatta Satcha, ultimate reality. But if you still operate from the Sakkayaditthi level, you'll just get confused by this. Because Sakkayaditthi, if you don't pinpoint it and see it and recognize its limitation, the personality view, if you don't recognize it, if you operate from Sakkayaditthi, then that will always create more Sakkayaditthi. Even no matter how determined and dedicated you are to practice, you'll end up with more Sakkayaditthi. Because, you just, maybe you become a monk or a nun, you become a junior monk or senior nun or anagarika, you identify, you become the conventions. You become a good meditator or not very good meditator. But if you trust in the awareness of Sakkayaditthi, it's not that there's anything wrong with Sakkayaditthi. It's not like a judgment saying we shouldn't have any ego or any Sakkayaditthi. It's to know it. It is impermanent. It arises and ceases. And then sape dhamma anatta. All Dhamma is not self. We don't have any self that is conditioned self or a separate condition that is what I can, in the Sakkayaditthi realm, that I can operate from, that I can trust. There's no Sakkayaditthi that I am willing to use as my basis for meditation. Because if I don't recognize that, then after years of meditation, diligent practicing, the basic illusion has never been recognized. The result might be you have good concentration, or you have, you become a good samana, you become saintly and a good person, but still not enlightened, not liberated. Or you might just give up because, how can we just be good? Is that, just be nice people, good people, well-mannered, loving, generous, happy, compassionate, joyful personalities as a kind of permanent state. There's no permanency in all these good qualities. So we have to deal with anger and fear and jealousy and resentment and greed, because these are a part of this realm. They're the energies and that we are experiencing through the human form. This planetary life is like this. And that awareness then is the only way out of that realm, to escape that. Not to destroy it, but to liberate ourselves from that blind ignorance, that blind attachment to conditioned phenomena. Now this is our opportunity. This is a rare opportunity, actually. There's not many, this kind of opportunity we have here at Amaravati is quite rare in the world. Because the worldly life at this time is based on Sakkaya Ditthi, really, on ignorance. So the society we live in is all about ignorance and self-views and trying to get something or get rid of something, control something, judging, evaluating, criticizing, fearing, envying. So we have wars and endless strife and social problems and, as we all know, you listen to the news or anything, or just even in a monastery, one can be just caught up in endless problems, personal problems, because this is the cultural tendency to see ourselves and operate from this Sakkaya Ditthi. So that's why what I'm encouraging is to know Sakkaya Ditthi, not to get rid of it or judge it, because even if it's selfish and foolish and whatnot, it is still a condition. Even if it's whatever its quality might be, that which is aware is not Sakkaya Ditthi. So as human individuals, we have this great opportunity to stand at the door of the deathless and observe, because we're kind of in between the death and the deathless. It's the kind of where the death and deathless meet is this very moment here and now. And so this is what mindfulness is, putting ourselves into that gate or that gap or that place that we call intuitive awareness. To know, to discern the death-bound conditions. All conditions are impermanent. They arise and cease, they change, they're good and bad, right and wrong, coarse, subtle, refined, heaven, hell, devils and angels, and all the rest. So, And then and this is the kind of magic or the marvel of our human birth, is that as a human individual, we can actually sustain, through recognizing the awareness, this position of discerning mindfulness as a cultivating mindfulness, developing mindfulness in daily life, with the conditions as they might be, physically, personally, externally, internally, whatever the conditions are, infinite in their variety and forever changing. So at least we're trying to put the conditions into perspective here in a monastery that we agree, just say, on ways of behavior, action and speech. So that is, the Vinaya is a conventional form. It's a traditional form, and it's agreement of how we're going to relate to each other, so that we can begin to awaken to Sakyaditthi. If we're always negotiating our relationships and personal feelings about each other, then we're no longer in that point of intersection between the death and the deathless. We're back in the death-bound conditions of struggling and striving and trying to control things, complaining, blaming, and all the rest come from that endless struggle in our personal habits. So recognize the value of this convention, that we're using. It is a convention, but it's not for grasping or for identity or for vanity or it's not for Sakyaditthi. It's merely an expedient means to be able to recognize Sakyaditthi and the suffering we create through blindly being caught in this personality, these personality habits, these attachment to cultural conventions, cultural conditioning, society, identities, and all the rest. The whole cultural conditioning that we have, and the thinking mind. The thinking mind is a convention, which always leads to vicikiccha, or uncertainty, insecurity, doubt. So these three fetters, they're called fetters, sangyojana in Pali, they are the obstructions to stream entry. So my endeavors now are to keep reminding you, because we do forget, we get caught up in our own habits very quickly, not to try to become a stream enterer, because that's Sakyaditthi again. It's not about becoming a sotapanna or a stream enterer, but it's about using these structures with mindfulness and wisdom. So these fetters, the first three fetters are, after that, once you really see and know these three fetters, then you have insight into the path of liberation. And that path is very definite. It's not a fuzzy kind of path that is dependent on controlling everything, so that everything's quiet and tranquil. It's not about concentrating the mind on one thing by shutting everything out, but it's awakening to ultimate reality, recognizing it and cultivating from that ultimate reality as we have to experience the result of having been born in these human forms and the karma we've made in the past. As things change and we get older and various, we have to deal with age, sickness, death, loss, all these changing conditions that we still experience, but our relationship to them is no longer out of sakyaditi, but through panya or wisdom, discernment. So, see this, this is an encouragement, because you can't order people to do this. You can't, browbeat them into doing this kind of practice. Or threaten them. It's about encouraging, because the biggest problem with sakyaditi is our self-critical habits, is that we do feel, we really believe that there's something wrong, we're not that I need to get something I don't have, or I've got problems, or that I've got to get rid of, I'm not good enough, I'm not pure. How many of you think you're really pure enough? Or good enough? We can think, no, I'm not pure enough, I'm not good enough. Is usually what, some people think they're pure and that, but they're the impossible ones. One thing is self-disparagement. At least you're going in the right direction. You're looking at the self, but you're just criticizing. You're identifying with it. Where when you really believe I'm so pure and good that I know, that is very difficult to get any perspective on, because it's hard to reflect on that, because it's so maybe you're attached to believing in it. So it's not about thinking or thinking that you're pure or that you're good enough. It's not about just changing the I am to I'm no good to I'm good, but it's transcending the thinking process. That which is aware of thinking is not thinking, but it's certainly discerning, intelligent, alert, and is not bound by language or conditions. It's aware of conditions. It discerns conditions, knows conditions. And then within this human form that we live with till it dies, and that's our refuge, is in this awareness. So the Buddha Dhamma Sangha, these refuges, use them more for, kind of internalize these three words, Buddha Dhamma Sangha. Not in sakyaditi way, but thinking I'm a Buddha, whatever, that's sakyaditi. But taking refuge in the Buddha is being in this crossroads, this gate to the deathless, being at that point of intersection between time and the timeless. And that is, you try to think about it, you will, you'll end up doubting and making it into something more than it is. So it's a matter of just trusting. The awakenness is just this much. It's just paying attention. Open attention, watching, listening. And then your sakyaditi might say, oh, well, I'm not very good at that yet. And I read in the scriptures that you have to get proper samadhi, you've got to get kanika, and then all these other levels of samadhi before you can do Vipassana, and I don't think my samadhi is good enough for this. And that's Sakyaditi again. So you grab scriptural authority and make it into Sakyaditi for yourself. And so this is where the encouragement is to awaken to that. This sense of I am not, I should, I shouldn't. So this is what they call the Majjhima Patipata, or the middle way, but it's not a kind of compromise of conditioned phenomena into kind of, bland, tasteless porridge, the middle way, but it's a really transcendent consciousness that is no longer bound and limited by the conditioning process. Because this is a fully conscious reality. When you're aware, when there's mindfulness, there's consciousness. You don't go unconscious. But it's consciousness that isn't distorted through Sakyaditi, Silabbata Paramasa, Vicikicca. So these three fetters, like Sakyaditi, there's a personality view, the ego, whatever way, it's a sense of self, how you see yourself as an individual through, your identity with your physical appearance, with, your memories and tendencies, emotions, habits. Then Silabbata Paramasa was a kind of a mouthful of a word, but what it means is a conventional form, so like cultural conditioning, social conditioning. We acquire a lot of cultural conditioning, attitudes, assumptions that are from being born into particular social situations or cultures or ethnic groups or religions. That aren't necessarily Sakyaditi, but they're conditioned attitudes that you acquire through being born into the families that you're born into, and the ethnic identities, racial identities, cultural identities. So Silabbata Paramasa, and even Silabbata Paramasa can be being attached to Buddhism. Like, I'm a Theravada Buddhist, and you're a Mahayana Buddhist, and Theravada is the pure teaching, and all that. This is Silabbata Paramasa. So it's it's being attached to being Theravadan or even being Buddhist, as if Buddhism separated us from you're Christian and I'm a Buddhist. And then it goes into, I'm a Theravada Buddhist, you're a Mahayana Buddhist. And then in Thailand it goes into, I'm Mahanikai and you're Thammayut. And then it goes into, we're forest monks and you're town monks. This is what the language does. It's always about division, separation. It's not about discerning, it's about criticizing, about what is better or worse, bigger or smaller, right or wrong. So all this can be under Silabbata Paramasa, and then Vicikicca, doubt. Let's contemplate doubt as, not being sure. Insecurity, feeling of insecurity, uncertainty, doubt. And one is aware of, I don't know, I'm not certain, I feel confused, I feel, I feel very insecure, I feel, I want you to tell me, Ajahn Sumedho, how I should practice. Please tell me exactly, should I do samatha first and then vipassana? Should I practice anapanasati for how many minutes and then go into body awareness, or should I do body awareness first and then do anapanasati and then do vipassana, or when does the metta practice come in? You get yourself into a real mental twist with just grasping very good concepts. And it's doubt, isn't it? I don't quite know what to do right now. And the awareness of that, not sure, not knowing, is like this. And that's a knowing, isn't it? A knowing of not knowing. It's not knowing about things or having a prescription or saying Ajahn Sumedho told me to do this, or the scriptures say. It's not about what other people say or what scriptural authority tells you, but it's a direct knowing and a discerning intelligence that we're taking refuge in. So Buddha is this refuge of awareness. Dhamma is the reality that we're aware of. And Sangha is those practicing, like ourselves, Sangha who supatipano ujupatipano, and like practice in the right way, directly. It's not about even being a monk or a nun or samana or anything. It's about supatipano, ujupatipano, yayapatipano, insightful practice. Those who practice with integrity. So it's not about, do I have enough integrity? Am I really a supatipano or not? Am I really ujupatipano? And then you're back in sakyaditi, you see. So it's not about me becoming a Buddha or Ajahn Sumedho's Dhamma or I'm Sangha. It doesn't apply anymore. They use these three refuges. They're not for grasping, but for helping you to get out of these sakyaditi problems of that we tend to have. It's a quite insidious sakyaditi. But when you really begin to recognize it, it's so obvious. It's not like, it's very clear what it is. And then inevitably somebody's asked, well, what is it? Who is it that knows sakyaditi? Is that sakyaditi? Because it's out of ignorance of Dhamma, then we don't know the difference. We don't discern the difference. We are our thoughts. We are the physical forms, the cultural conditions, the emotions that we have. We identify, we judge, we criticize ourselves and the world and others, and on like this. So, but then awareness, or puto, taking refuge in Buddha, then this puts us into this deathless, this point of intersection between the deathless and death. And that's this human experience in this birth as a human individual, is that this is what the Buddha is pointing to. Just this, doesn't we transcend the body and we say goodbye forever and we lose our bodies and everything else. We all, this point of intersection, we live our lifespan within these conditions, but our relationship to them is through wisdom rather than through ignorance and attachment. So to me, this is very important to see, to know for yourself, because you might, it's not about me telling you, but what I'm saying is just an encouragement. To kind of encourage you to really put forth this kind of effort to investigate, to know for yourself. And then these Buddhist teaching, like the Four Noble Truths, paticca samuppada. These are very skillful means for investigating reality. It's a very effective tool, the Four Noble Truths. But if it's just grasped as a Buddhist teaching, and it's probably better than grasping other things, but it's like the key to the prison cell. You've got the key, but you don't use it. So you're still in prison, even though you've got the way out. So the Buddha you're in prison, the Buddha gives you, this is the key. Now you're in this stinking, rotten little cell, and you want out. Well, then here's the key, hands it to you. And then now you just see that hole under the door knob there, on the door of the prison cell. Insert the key, and then turn the key to the right. And then twist the knob, and the door will open, you can get out. So the ignorant person hears that and says, oh, the Buddha gave me the key for liberation. And you hang it on the wall of your prison cell and worship it. So it's probably better than not having anything at all, but it's not liberating. And then another person, that same thing happens, and he puts the key into the keyhole, but turns it the wrong way, turns it to the left and right, and tries to open the door, but it won't open. So he says, doesn't work. And then the third one, who listened to the directions and followed them precisely, does all the right things and gets out, frees himself or herself from that horrible prison cell. Now this is the key, the Four Noble Truths. You use it for liberation. It's not for hanging on the wall and worshipping, or just because it doesn't, maybe you don't use it skillfully enough the first time, so you think it doesn't work. But it's through a kind of persistence of experimenting, investigating the reality of this moment, here and now, till you actually can open this door and free yourself from the misery of the prison. So then we have 1 week left. This is the last week of the Vassa. And so we start thinking about the future, what we're going to do. Observe that. How, especially as something begins, at the beginning of the Vassa, is the state of mind is one way, and then at the end, like the last week, we go to that, the mind turns towards the future. All the katinas and travel and here and there and this and that. And so, during this retreat, at least try to observe that. How, you can spend this whole retreat planning your moves after the Vassa. And not it's not about saying that you shouldn't do that, but be the knower of it. It's like this. Because that's in the future, isn't it? The end of Vassa is this moment here and now is not the end of the Vassa. That's in the future. The future is the unknown. So it's what I don't know. Should I, or shouldn't I, or should I just stay in one place? Should I go somewhere else? What should I do? And you could spend this whole last week of the Vassa trying to figure out what you should do after the Vassa. But it's more important for you to see that, to be the knower of uncertainty, doubt, vicikicca. The future is always the unknown, isn't it? It's what hasn't happened, it's possibility, it's probability, it's worries, dreads, fears, all about the future. And then memories of the past. You think of what's happened this past year here at Amaravati, and you get caught in memories. And then the future, and now is the knowing. So this is where the Buddha Dhamma Sangha, the refuges are. This is the gate to the deathless. This is the point of intersection between timeless and time. This is, and so by keep reminding yourself, and constantly referring to this present, here and now, the body, the breath, the sound of silence, this awareness, being aware of your state of mind, whatever it is, if it's your mood, your emotional conditions of the present are like this, whatever they might be. So it's Paccuppanna Dhamma, here and now, and keep, no matter how much you get carried away by your emotions or desires or whatever, there's always a point where you kind of catch yourself. So this is like when you start thinking, I've got to be mindful, and then you start planning all your moves after the Vassa, and then suddenly you realize what you're doing. And at that moment, then go to something like the breath or the body, or just be the observer, sound of silence. Or just remember, even if you forget right away, it's a matter of training, keep returning, always establishing this presence here and now. And then, to keep remembering here and now until it sticks, till you find, you stick to the constancy of the supernal mind that needs not move. In my own practice, in the beginning years, it just seemed hopeless because I was always caught in the movement of my emotions and thoughts. And even though I'd have flashes of insight, it seemed hopeless because of just the power of my karma, of my emotional tendencies, of my personality, reactions to life. But this is like persistence, like cultivating, bhavana, is about this, Paccuppanna Dhamma, remembering here and now, mindfulness. And then don't get caught up in how many times you fail, because it's back into Sakya Ditthi again, isn't it? If I've got to be mindful, like Ajahn Sumedho's teaching this, and I shouldn't be planning my after the Vassa. Ajahn Sumedho said I shouldn't be thinking about after the Vassa, I should always be here and now. I'm going to do that, and then 2 seconds later you're off thinking, well, after the Vassa I've got to... And then maybe you spend the whole day planning, making your moves for what you're going to do after the Vassa. And then that point, suddenly you realize, and trust that. That's a moment of awareness. And don't go around saying, oh, I'm not mindful, like, feeling guilty and kind of persecuting yourself because you've spent the whole day doing something you vowed you would never do. I mean, it's like just training to recognize that, no matter how good our intentions are, we tend to get caught up into things, but there is this point where we suddenly realize, and it oftentimes goes into self-disparagement, feeling despair about ourselves and our practice. So I encourage you not to do that. It's a waste of time to do that. Just trust that, that point, and kind of bow to that point of awareness. Put your hands together and say, thank you. And listen to the silence or the breath, or bring you, to be present with the way it is. So I offer this for your reflection.